Yeah.
40, we are starting from 48, right?
叫九段接通呢是个什么？叫九段接通呢是什么？
Ale, lus. This, ngarke padang, lenjike, timarola. This,
九段接习主
Charula.
习主
Lus.
Ah,
Oh, lus. Ngarke padang, lenjike. Marmare, this konda.
叫九段接通呢是
Chipchu xianga.
internet guys.
Good morning again, Rinpoche Tashi Dele. And good morning, Dr. Tenzin Buchung. Thank you so much for translating for us this week and next week. And welcome to all the online participants. We're happy you can join us this morning. The link for the prayers is in the chat box, and we'll begin with some motivation prayers.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, for destroyer, completely and fully awakened, one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, nor the world supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you are born on this earth, you pay 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom motion like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate, protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, a flame in a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all-seeing, subdue the 4 faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death.
Recording in progress.
Sound anointed with perfume, flowers strewed Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon. Imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love. Let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Iram gururana mandalakam niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh yeah, that is. Oh yeah, yeah. No be shiwale, junju nal sumuda. Oh gosh. Mi tula tene ne tungi chu chele chuse. Tundi chine nye ka momba tu su nye ma lo songre. Ngarazu tanda top debe mili de sungu ara. Dewa jatan joba chu sangenge. Sanje ki temba dan jene ro. Oh, tindri mili kebar chandi sungu ara. Ene tungi di chu le treji ki chuda bure sungu ara. Di pechi chishena. Noa. Mi tula tene nis. Mi luten. Tungi le treji ki chudan rawan de sungu ara. Mi tula tene nis. Tungi chu chele tres. Tungi ki chu ngesungi tungi ki chu le tretu bure. Roa. Ene koe dunga lada mila sokwa. Lada nyamube shawantu churne. Kichi chiyo koe tungi tele yang tewa chitu uyara. Tele tarwa suyara. Tunda tungi le tretu tele kibu chungu dechine ngesungi tungi le tre uyara. Tinga zu tangmalya shushe sara susu chi machi susu labara mato. Trechi ki tabdi karesana migi chupaa yata. Roa. Ti kiwa chutu getiche. Ti galya ane tangmade tindu suwa kasara. Changmi tunga tanga sera. Tinte sumchi kyabche. Ti galya ti kasara. Gujin dan choyo choyo sera bche sum kyabche. Chudu shek tuan ti kapsu. Nam yunga zu mikyo chunal tuche shek yora hangondo tuji chudila. Miki chugungi chudimshi. Man ti kapsu ya ti tosi kero tanga chudu sumgitwa. O tire. Tunga chule tuji Judan Rawati Mili Digi Pechu Chela, and it Tunal do your Kiwachamang Sony Kieg, Jiba Yomarwa, the Tachu Jurico. Oh, Tani Jotomina Sashabe, Miguel to Soli Shapache, Setilia, and then Chuchu, Mundu Chuchu to Solia, to Unisam Tan to Yuna, and Chivalamula Tisam Kurkere, and then Kesim Yungane China, Plata Milikia Madungason Jigmarwa. Sena kumune tungi chu ngesung tungi chu le treji tongone de le te to chiktere ya odi sona.
So, Gandhi Deva, in his Bodhisattva's way of life, mentions, writes that our human body is like a boat that ferries us across the river of suffering or ocean of suffering, and this particular boat is extremely difficult to find. And since this boat is extremely difficult to find, one should not remain lazy and kind of sleeping at kind of inappropriate times and so forth. So the example is basically the human body, the boat that carries one across the ocean of suffering or river of suffering. But he basically points to the fundamental preciousness of human birth, that once we have attained this bird-like precious human birth, then we are given the opportunity or the proper vehicle to cross the ocean of suffering. And the suffering here primarily refers to the three types of suffering, beginning with the suffering of lower realms. And so in order to gain freedom from rebirth in lower realms, one has to engage in 10 wholesome actions or virtuous actions, that is refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions. And in this particular text, Nagarjuna actually adds a couple of more, including not drinking alcoholic drinks and so forth, totaling 16 wholesome actions that we must observe in order to take rebirth in higher realms. So therefore, this particular method, he taught it very clearly, right? Now it's basically up to us. On a day-to-day basis, if we refrain from 10 10 negative actions, or 16, or engage in the observance of the 16 wholesome actions, and that, on a day-to-day basis, we think about these like non-virtuous states of mind, non-virtuous like actions, and then make a kind of intentional decision to refrain from doing them, engaging in them on a day-to-day basis. And also at the same time, generate sort of regret over negative actions accumulated from many countless lifetimes and engage in purification practices, then there is no doubt that, this kind of practice will deliver us from the suffering of lower realms, because due to a lifetime of practice, at the end of when the time of our death nears, during the dying process, due to the force of our lifetime of spiritual practice or dharmic practice pertaining to refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions, these like wholesome states will necessarily arise. And when that happens, it is definitely we can be confident that we are going to actually take rebirth in higher realms. And then the second suffering is, of course, suffering from all forms of rebirth within samsara, even including those of the higher births, because they are fundamentally propelled by karma and applicable emotions, and therefore in the nature of suffering.
Oh yeah. Me chula tenene tunge chuchile. Ta chu niba tuya de tirwa ngazo. Koye tunge le tende tuya. Tanda nge sungu tunge le tuya tabde. Kanda karsore. Ngunde chuchuti. Litin digi pechu chene digi wada. Oh, ta tene nge le digi karsore. Ngundu lada mi koba teya tunge ji rangshin chen batone. Toa kibu digi kapso. Lada mi ke wate ko sosolo rao yo mara ke kana chila sobe tunge mambu yora. Tene ko tembu ke yo mara yang yasong ma tung sigira. O te indi lada mi la soba kawai na leda nyomo be shiwa do gyurne. Pumbun dolen che ko ba tele tarwa chi che ko to sam. Rawa. O te che ko yo na kuwe tunge le tawar che ko yo na. Ane tanda nga zo ngele ki kyuti che yo ra. Ngundu kyu she sa na ngele kyu ta tongba nye tonggore. Midawa kongore. Ane chakwa chungru tanggore. Kondru chungru tanggore. Chakdangi wangi ane kosungki chawa che de chungru tanggore ese. O ti maa che ne nyamu panye de sungudwa. O ti susu ludin de tingne. Dame ba dame da kwa le soba. Aro ane chakwa shenja nga ye samsa shenja chungru tang. Ti shenja chungru che ne kondru de rangshingi chungru ra. Chakwa ki wangi kondru chigi wara. O ti indi ko There's a part Jumbaina, Timanu Tange, Dame Bakumde, Chagdana Sopa, Yamuka, the Machu Tambaina, and the Nile Kuala Kimaku Chaviora, Dame Bakum, Dame Bangasum to Sabatona, Tanzingi Shawan to do your mother, Tanzingi Shawan to Machina, country Chabwe Shawan to do mother, and a country Shawan to do mother. Tiendeco, Sadam Miller Sopa, Ledan Yamube Wangi, Kawa, Rameba. 풍분돌린 제구가 들려 타고 제구가 동해 주들려 주구요나 어딘 동반이라서 뭐 다음에 걸어서 뭐 차단도서 총을 따고도 와 뒤탑뒤 단단하지
The river of lover rebirth, that of hungry ghosts, hell beings, and animals. And then once you gain freedom from this, the second river that we can cross by utilizing this human body is the river of conditioned existence within samsara. And that basically also includes even rebirths in higher realms like that of human beings and gods, since they are also propelled by karma and klesha, or karma and afflicted emotions. And so therefore there is no, we don't have any freedom in terms of our ability to abandon our aggregates. From lifetime to lifetime, the 5 psychophysical aggregates are propelled by karma and afflicted emotions, right? And so therefore that itself is a form of extreme suffering. So in order to cross this river, the second river, the river of existence within samsara, a conditioned existence, then we have to engage in the practices pertaining to the personal middle scope, right? So the first practices of refraining from the 10 negative actions and so forth constitute basically teachings pertaining to the person of small scope. So then all the teachings that help us gain liberation or moksha from conditioned existence constitutes what we call as teachings pertaining to the person of small scope. And for this particular purpose, the practice involves, earlier the practice involved refraining from negative actions, right, and engaging in wholesome actions. Here now, the practice involves more subtle kind of a refraining, that is refraining from not just actions, but afflicted emotions, particularly those of desire, hatred, and ignorance, right? So therefore, as much as possible, we try to eliminate our desire, eliminate our aversion, craving and aversion, and fundamentally they are propelled by a kind of ignorance of self-grasping. And so therefore we engage in the practice of understanding and meditating on the wisdom of emptiness, the wisdom of selflessness, and so forth. And if you're able to actually realize the wisdom of emptiness, selflessness, then we be able to naturally be freed from all afflicted emotions that come from fundamental kind of dual force of craving and aversion propelled by ignorance, right? So therefore, this is what we're doing right now. In the section that we are on now is basically all the teachings that help us cross this second river, the river of rebirth within conditioned existence, or what we call as samsara.
Oh yeah. 어디 인도 가서래. 미 줄라테네 동해 주실래 줘세. 어디 줄을지 요나고 주진디 배주 제고라 땅고라 라고 그저 접치 제고라. 티엔데 그 밀리 주단저 동해 주를 주지기 주진의 신기 리디 톱도 요르데 티 배주 제네. 너와 미게와 주파 단도 따라서 나시. 근데 주주를 써봐 주게라. 일단다 녀레들이야. 다음에 봐 공부에 착당을 써봐 녀르다. 링와 예수님 거네 착당고 원도 손데 레사야 녀르다나. 네 주신 땅기 와라. 주신 땅에는 벌써 발레도라. 자 미줄을 때는 동네 추우실래. 준디 친해 얘거. 대답이 밀리탄데 토바나 신데 치 따버르시 니 까버르 다세. 그 주에 대신드네 가버르 대소소소 삼르다나 개와 주에 당 미개와 니디 가르시우체도 하고 그라. 지난 그 준디 치네니 그 마오바나 든데니 가보시다레스. 가르서 예송라부 찌르마 홍사수나 니메 아마 도르 줘야 니가 요라. 어디인데 준디데 치네니 그가 몽바스. 국가스 다 국가전에 맞대서 다 정부체 정부체 다른 밀리티 신대 지구 돈달이야 사야 통해 지구 돈달을 조모지 부체 딜을 하고 돈다야 땡긴데 뭐지 두고 그래서 딜 맞나 내 마음 바나야 딘데 밀리 톡하고 그래서라 준디 친에 니가 몽바 뒤수 니 말로세 주신 토베 갑딜에 니로 제 맞대서 가야 다시 맞죠 어니야 세네 정부체네 아니 주신 땅스 뭐 주신 땅 우여나 내성의 동일에 저토고래 고해 동일에 좋아지고래 어성구도 하야 어디실람나
So therefore, Shantadeva is basically urging us to use the boat to ferry ourselves across the river of suffering. So how do you really sort of ferry ourselves across the river by using this particular boat? It is by engaging in the practices described earlier, practices pertaining to the person of small scope, that is basically refraining from 10 non-virtuous actions and so forth. When you're doing that, that is how we are actually using or utilizing our boat of human body, right? That is what is meant by using it. So when we engage in studying and reflecting and meditating on the teachings on impermanence in order to achieve the wisdom of impermanence, not impermanence, emptiness or selflessness, then we are utilizing the boat that we have achieved. So Shantideva says, like, this particular boat is extremely difficult to attain. And that is because, there are so many difficult causes and conditions that is involved in actually achieving a human birth, right? And it is therefore very difficult to give rise to all the causal factors to be able to achieve a human birth and then have access to teachings. And so therefore, since that is the case, once we actually fall from this particular precious human birth and say, let's like we take rebirth in lower realms, then it is extremely difficult to gain freedom from that, because the circle of negative karma propelling negative karma, that is sort of like continuous. So it's very difficult to break the chain. So therefore, since it is extremely difficult to find this boat, Nagarjuna is saying basically, "Oh fool," addressing us, "Oh fool, don't sleep, wake up, and use your precious human body, human boat, right?" That we should not only be concerned with mundane concerns like just providing food, shelter, and so forth, which is of course important, but we shouldn't be limited to that. That we should actually use this particular opportunity to find a permanent kind of a kind of grounding that leads us to freedom.
Oh yeah. That is something that they should do. So to machine to go to when the to be a car needed to be a car. That is so do my do so labadua. So Jenna Chemeto with Reke Maro. Nam you get a shed in and make you to the young man, you touch a chicken in your dan tayora. Oh, Chabashan Churdan, oh, send the chip with the she was a chair, some 10 to 10 garage and she was just some tangora. Didn't get Marco message with Gajaera. Send the chip with the message to Chimbudi, Nanga Chimbuti Tolatan Mandira. Don't that Chunju Tondalia. Koran message and the Koran Sochu Vesurichira. Jala Koran and the Koran Sochu. Tipe Pambucha, the Kokasura. Oh, send the chick with on that way, the Tesambi. Chitanda Trogure Koina, Tesambia Ketchum, Titandale Chatanga Kondo, Shawan Migiwachu, Sheji Satanani, Jochima Pundura, or the Tingara to Chituya Yore, Kadina, Shinja Churu, some the Susumato, some Gimagadi Churu Chura, and then Azu Konzo, say Chatan Sero, Tanda Chamji, Zawada, Shan the Tawapang, but a Shan Pamba to when you did but Sutushana, or the Indico Shalia. So much pember to Kaduina, oh, Sambutan shot of Chiche. Ni, Mrs. Gagures and Mrs. Young dog with Swasigua. Mrs. Young dog was a scary Nico, Mrs. Gago Barsoda. No to the Mele Kulan Roshagra. Mrs. Jeton the log with Swasig Garina. Nesonda, Quaco, Guyanja Saga, Yombesur Chanura, or the Indica soda. Oh, dinner Sumbanashing it, Melody, Dunda Dembachi, some Dichedo, and then go to Topjig, Chuetan, Mili Topjig, and then Gomuludugi, Umaraji, and Sumbanashi, Tobache, Sampache, and the Yanni and the Kumdichi, some the Topachagi, some, or Dichedo, and the Chuanyangi, some, Gulu said, and the Semper shoes, all this.
So therefore, it is also not the case that it is extremely difficult to engage in the practice of those dharma or causal factors that gives us rebirth in higher birth, and also lead us to the state of definitive good, which is basically the state of liberation. Because as it is clearly explained by Nagarjuna here, on a day-to-day basis, the practice basically involves, is right from the beginning, analyzing our mind and making a motivation that this particular day I'm going to watch my own thoughts and actions, so that I'm going to not engage in the whole negative actions. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to engage in wholesome actions, right? That's one kind of set of practices that we can do. And as when we are mindful, when we're conscious, then as soon as we engage in some sort of unwholesome actions, then we immediately, confess, engage in confessional practices and so forth. And then that is what is basically meant by, engaging in actions that give us freedom from lower realms, teachings pertaining to the person of small scope, right? Something that we can do because the teachings have been clearly explained here. And then the second level of teaching pertaining to the person of middle scope that lead us to the state of liberation, basically involves on a day-to-day basis, as much as possible, limiting our kind of gross like desire and gross like hatred, to see them as negative and to try to kind of suppress them as much as possible, right, at the level of after the emotions. And then to engage in practices that fundamentally eliminate all forms of craving and aversion, which is basically teachings pertaining to wisdom of emptiness or wisdom of selflessness, right? So ultimately, all of these practices basically can be incorporated into the dual practice of refraining from harming other sentient beings and engaging in actions that positively benefit other sentient beings, right? And in this like dual practice, all of the practices that we just mentioned can be combined, because like all of these actions are fundamentally kind of there because it impacts other sentient beings. And so therefore, all this can be done when we actually see the momentary nature of our life, right? That we are not here permanently, that life is, short, and that is certain. And with this kind of training, then you see what is important, like engaging in like a lot of like fight that pertains only to this life will lose its significance, right? And then we'll be able to live what we called as engage in right livelihood, a kind of livelihood that kind of not only helps oneself, but also does not harm others, right? So therefore, our motivation of listening to this particular text, this particular teaching should be that, like I'm going to listen to the teachings that Nagarjuna has explained here that give us rebirth in higher realms and give us kind of the attainment of liberation. And for that particular purpose, I am going to receive these teachings. So that let's motivate like that.
Oh yeah. 당연히 솔로가 시주시주바디인바. 어디다 시주시주바디래. 대 가르시에 그래서나 어느 가서래. 근데 랑신지 주바든 판이도 저와다 랑신지 주바 마레스 디시에도 등이 쇼라니래. 어디에 가서래. 네. 개와 교당 제 통회식도 와. 개와 교당 제 통회식도 가서 그래서네. 동해 개와 되시고라. 당신이 교당 제 바데 얘네 엄마바기 처음에 통계 여시고라. 신기 여시 죽투기 여시고라. 개와 교당 제 통회식. 거기에 동해에서 바테서 상마데 로 얘네 당신이 교나 삼서 삼로시게 얘네 가지고 건조세 삼로게 얘네 작다게 대왕게 미게레사 대왕게 동해주에 대간자 지시도 무슨 통제를 지라 내 준비세대 지시도 마부증 무슨 그 통계 있은 거라 된다버리도 그래서 그디나 나 삼삼을 숙쳐부시다 인터넷 진주선 지마서상 공동아 제차도 강가 연구도 대왕게 밀게 지셔야 삼루탄에 자리자에 강가 연구하라 자고 대왕게 기회를 사고 이나고 라다 밀게 지루어를 미게 와서나 내성이 지루어라 저 오마바데스 다던다 오마바데 최탐제 때다마메 랑고네 메스도 최다워래서 디겨 강가 지구어라 뭐마다 지루가 참마게 가게 메스 지란 다랑고네 랑고네 다 메스 랑고네 나이와 메스 랑고네 수 메스 진에 가에 메게를 최다와 농샤스 매바마와래서 텔라고라 오가 주든데 마르다스고라 전다 그래서는 오마바데게 동해에서 와께와데 동해에나다 대화에나다 가리 나리로와 다던데 동해께 교del이야 아오 냠바체 아니 chartan게 대왕게 아니 미게레사고도 대왕게 데부 동해체 델레 베제 하고 그래서 두부체는 두부냐데 서서 하고도 망셔하지 chartan게 레사네 동해 중에 가시 무슨도 두고래 체델이야 단 체델게 마도데 마음발이요 용겨라 어디선가라 개와 교당지 통회에서 대체면 통계 처음에 줍통계 신기 요소 리버 성르다니 매번 일은 대바에서 아주 오마바데 매번 마와 말에서 체다와 말에서 가야매 개왕아마매 치마매 개와매 대바매 간사매서 티스기오 말에서 기와라 매번 일은 대바에서 매번 마와는 대바데 매번 말에 예수 남게라 예수 거라 대진 대바를 중앙삼도 자제롱아 기대이다 기대인 대부 대화 동에 개와도 개랭겨와라 어쨌든 제다와 마이스 타지가와라 되네 고바 주단 제통에 여반이 동안 개밀len식도 고바 주단 제바세 고대에서 가지고 엄마바게 동에게 교안진다 차단도서파 고바 예수 시에 예수라 고대인데시거라 당진다 차단을 소바 니모도도 고바 라르메게 서준 고통베 까통베게 고바 예수야 세바 예수 빵베 예수 데데 고바데 톱지게 주데라 람나 삼사 녀모꾸냐 나게 간지데 나 라와 메바 또베 람제 데바데가 자 하고 예수라 나 라와 메바데 나 삼사 간지 고게 레사 녀모강게 지게와라 자 디바 각지기 곡바디 톱지기 곡베 젤주식이라 디단 곡된스나도 곧딱 버리시래 데리 교식마다 제외 교식이라 젤주식도 교문에게 곡바 코란샤나데 딱 버리되어라 저던다 녀문 곡베 곡바데 네 데리야 주 람게 템바 다메바 다긴 녀모 제사기 시간가 삼브라와데 야 차단kin 연구도 와세 다 차단도 매바 송게게 나세 나 라와데 매바 또게 애니 나 란지디 난지 세베 세바 토지기 다 매바 또게 로디 난지 샤토비 유스거라 고바 주단 제통 왜세 람딩기 주단 제베통 왜세 세메 통하래 리베 툭툭이어라 통왜세 내가 니len 대바 인세 어디 가서래 여바 니len 대바 여타마 말해서 그라 랑군의 여바 마 어디 말은 아주 삼번나시 랑군의 여바 랑신기 여바 랑경고 여바 축뚝도 여바 딱수도 여바서 망보여라 나랑게 여 삼산도 왔다 고대부친 되래 나랑게 여 삼산 속보다 소아다 뜻파 로가샤 뜻을 롱주 징게르 로가치 나치 여 삼기도 왔더라 나랑게 여 랑군의 여바서도 랑게 뭐예요 여봐서 랑신기 여봐서 속도도 여봐서 지체가 돈을 세줬던 디레샤세르지 봐 지금은 제 위에서를 삼고도 어디 인도인데요 말씀 때데 여반이 장캡다 돈다 오마바데 딱세게 탕이다 저 의마와데 예세 제다와 말에세 랑신기 여바마와데 말에 랑원에 똥바레데 똥바 말에세 자시 롱알레 좀 될어서 뭐 기득한 거 캐는 게 요스티시도 어디실라나 뭔가 죄송하다 드려야
So then verse number, we're going to start from verse number 46. Verse number 46. So first I'm going to just read this. Seeing that production has a cause, one transcends the notion of non-existence. Seeing that cessation has a cause, one does not accept the notion of existence. So therefore, this particular verse basically defines the Madhyamika view as one that is free from the two extremes, the extreme of existence and extreme of non-existence, and that therefore it is a kind of a philosophical position or wisdom that is able to eliminate any notion of substantial, true, or intrinsic existence. Or in other words, the Madhyamika position of lack of any intrinsic existence pertaining to both personal and phenomenal world is basically a position that is actually free from the two extremes of existence and non-existence, or inherent existence and inherent non-existence. That is to say, it has to be qualified like that, right? And so what this basically verse comes in response to the position of non-Buddhist schools and also all the substantialist or realist Buddhist schools, that is all the schools below Swatanta Madhyamika, where they say that in the position of the Madhyamika view is basically one that is of nihilism. It leads to a nihilistic conclusion. So therefore, it is saying, in response to that, it is by saying that we are not nihilist because we say seeing that production has a cause, because we see that production or arising of suffering and so forth has causes and conditions. So therefore we're not saying that there is no production of suffering, because we see the production of suffering, the arising of suffering has causes and conditions. And so therefore you cannot actually blame us to be somebody who actually kind of cling to a nihilistic philosophical conclusion, because the causal mechanism of causes and conditions giving rise to definite result is something that we see, something that we maintain. So seeing here is not only do we perceive it directly with our uh, uh, pramana or valid cognition, and we also see it or perceive it or realize it through inferential logic or inference as well. The two types of epistemological mechanisms, right? And so with respect to a great degree, we are actually able to kind of conventionally perceive the causal mechanism. For example, we generate to us great sense of self-importance or ego, and that in turn give rise to either craving or aversion, fear, and so forth. And then that in turn kind of activate a particular action, verbal, physical, something like that. That in turn give rise to suffering, right? This is something that we can all perceive directly, in our own kind of, physiological, psychophysical mechanism. And some of these, causal mechanisms we may not see right here in this life, but they give rise to kind of result in previous lifetimes. So therefore, the Madhyamikas are saying that actually we are not nihilistic because we actually can maintain that with our own cognition, with our own pramana, we can maintain that there is a causal mechanism, that production of suffering has causes and conditions, and we maintain that, right? Then the second is the so therefore then the second extreme is extreme of eternalism or existence or inherent existence, and that is basically with regard to the state of cessation, kokpa, right? State of cessation. And so then they say that okay, but you maintain the state of cessation. Cessation itself is permanent, you maintain, and so therefore it amounts to basically clinging to eternalistic view. And to this, Nagarjuna is basically responding by saying that even cessation we see or we perceive through inference and through direct perception as having causes and conditions. So therefore, seeing cessation has a cause, one does not accept it as a kind of a form of inherent existence. Again, here, the cessation here is basically cessation of afflicted emotions, craving and aversion, and all the associated negative afflicted emotions. Cessation of also the root cause of all afflicted emotions, that is this self-grasping, right? Boxing or self-grasping, and cessation of suffering in such a way that they do not arise again. The the state of irreversible cessation of self-grasping, craving, aversion, and the resultant suffering, right? We maintain that as having causes and conditions. So kind of in a philosophical kind of gymnastic here, we say cessation itself is permanent, right? So therefore it is not produced by causes and conditions. But we the this we say this causal factors leading to the separation of all self-grasping and so on, and that leads to the state of cessation. So indirectly, cessation also has causes and conditions. And so because we also maintain that the noble truth of path of cessation, we maintain that, we see that, we perceive that, we can infer that, right? Because of understanding the wisdom of emptiness and so forth, we also do not fall to the position of eternalism. And so basically, what the Madhyamikas are refuting is refuting true existence, existence or objective existence, existence from its own side, right? The terminology is independent existence, substantial existence, inherent existence, existence from the side of the object of objective existence, right, and so forth. That even though the Madhyamikas maintain a causal mechanism where there are many causal conditions taking place, and including the conceptual imputation for phenomena to actually exist. But nonetheless, if we were to try to find that as having some sort of objective inherent existence on the object themselves, on the basis of designation themselves, then we will not find it.
Oh yeah. Taman to solo ka shipsu shipnendira. Ti junde rangshinji truba ka widwa. Judan drebu kaya rangwine truba yoma res. Ti ka yora. Ti ngar ki ba na lenji ke se widwa. Ngar ke ba se de chidan ko ju se den drebu ngal ke gura. Nangbo sanji ben de gura. Drebu ngeli ya ke be ju ngodo ke be ju. Judan ngeli yo ene ti pindi pelne. Nen drebu di ke gura. Gyungeli drebu ngare do yobe chuma to drebu da tunyam do yoba da chisu yoba setinde gyo mara nang bachena ta ina ya lenji kese chunde tunyam ba ke denge yora tukta mo shendawe yo kante sigres ne gyu de sun drebu yore sigara drebu de gyu de su yoyore tangjen ba tjine ko chisu ne go te gyudan drebu yoyore ta tsungam ba se de ma se de ma chisu se de ma to gyudus meven drebu yomarisi dunyam regdoa. Chidan kote, ngarji bada, lenji kese da, lenji do yobade, chunde dunyam do yobade siyora. Utinde kanya tundamba trube, drebu ngare do yobe gyu, rangune trube drebu kiwa yomare, gyu da dunyam do yobe gyu kya, rangune trube drebu kiwa yomare setandarwa. Tunda di gyu dusun drebu yore setazo, rangune trube shenda chune ti yungu yosera. Uchi yotene ya ke yungu to kono ya te yungu shide. Ti nalo chi mene dambu ne mene tsu tonya yo mare samgyora. Rangune tangure, rangune kuna ngune tsu tonya yungu yogare. Ti samgdo wache rangune se. Ti te gyudu ne yo gore sambyam yugungun bure chen tenyo de gyudu su mewen drebu kye yo mare sigora. San nangba ene wa gyu se de mambu uchi so ne. Tenjen dre ne ene lubur dun drebu diya tonya yungu chi kore ma to. Gyu ne yo deba chi ya chi yo marwa. This wara. Narji badan lenji ke gyumin si wara. Gyumes. Dendo gyume dos de sonza. Den rangune trube gyu yo mares. Rangune trube ndebu yo mares. Gyunde kari narwa. Dendo se de den rangune trube. Tene gyuden ndebu yo mares metos. Diji lamna tambu chikani diji lamna.
So then verse number 47 refutes the inherent existence of both cause and effect. The refutation of inherent existence of causality, that is, for both cause and effect. So I'm going to read here first. A cause that occurs before its effect, that is, or simultaneously with it, is not really a cause. It's not really a cause at all, because such causes are not accepted normally. Okay. So one idea is basically that when there is an arising of an effect, that generally speaking, or conventionally speaking, when we talk about a result or an effect, the cause comes first, right? A previously existing cause gives rise to an effect, right? That's the kind of a general conventional understanding, right? But here, that this is not what is meant here. This is kind of an analysis that pertains to the ultimate reality, right? And this is basically a negation of philosophers or philosophical schools that basically posit an inherent existence, whether it pertains to causes or whether it pertains to result, right, or effect. And that is of this kind of clinging to a notion of inherent existence. For example, Sankhya's, right? Sankhya's, they say that they think that cause and condition is not just something that is imputed on a process. Cause and condition must inherently exist. Now, if you just like take away our concept, right? Take away our all conceptual interference, so to speak, and look at the object themselves, something in the object when we will find a cause and condition, right? And it's like inherently existing. So Sankhya's, they say that actually it must inherently exist. It is not just a conceptual imputation. And so therefore cause and conditions exist penge or simultaneously, right? And the idea is that the effect is in its unmanifest form, simultaneously existing with the cause. And then it becomes it kind of manifests later on. And if there is nothing during the causal kind of state, then there is nothing that will manifest at all, right? So this kind of position comes to a kind of clinging to a real kind of feeling that something must truly exist from the side of the object themselves. So therefore, it is kind of negation of that, right? Inherently existing prior cause will not give rise to an inherently existing effect. Simultaneously, an inherently or a simultaneously existing cause will not give rise to an effect.
Oh yeah. Tandere da yanda nidu na jawang rabdu matra shirsedera. Da yanda nidu nis. Rangshinji drube drebu jawa desi wara. Rangshinji drube julen drebu jawa de. Da yanda le tene tanyebe seme drubu ma re sera. Rangshinji meba de. Da yanda le tene rangshinji meba de drubu tugur ma do. Rangshinji yoba de. Da yanda le tene tanyebe sema ge drubu tugur ma re se. Da. 양다 니도 내서 담담라 제바싱게게 양다 볼 제바싱게게 ene chema shure 되게야 두비와 말레스 디 좀나 따도 생긴 쇼로 랑문에 요나 가와요스 따르지네 랑문에 가서 강가랑 요스나 가와요 소보데르베 셈데르베 소아데르베 소부나 요베 사주물롱기 중앙도 저르베 텔레 로스치 고베난 주den게 저지 요르베 세틴데 딱지 지요라 디 담담라 제베 참마로 yana te nye kuro, do dire shasi chili zugu susa juyo kura, tiya me do si che, tandamla chebe tsamala ya tragu maare, tanya chebe tsamala ya tragu maare se, tanda tseme trugu maare se, tseme yudu yo maare se, tandarawa, tuktuk mudu se. Tata yanda nye do na, kiawa rabdu matra chiris, tandambe chule, tandambe drebu kiawa de, tanya be tsamada, tandambe tsama kaala ya, kange ya trugu maare se.
And so the last two lines of this particular stanza, it says, a cause that occurs before its effect or simultaneously with it is not really a cause at all, or they do not exist in this way, because such causes are not conventionally or nominally accepted, nor are they accepted from the ultimate standpoint of view. So therefore, such in kind of a notion of an inherently existing cause giving rise to an inherently existing effect or a kind of or simultaneously existing cause giving rise to an effect, inherently existing effect, right? If you try to analyze that even from a conventional point of view, through using kind of conventional inference or logic, we will not be able to accept such a position. Nor will we find such kind of a notion of cause and effect if we engage in finding such a causality from the point of view of ultimate analysis. So the ultimate analysis here is basically the kind of the cognition that engage or wisdom that engages in exploring what is ultimate realities. Right? For example, if we try to search for, what self is truly, if this self exists, then from an ultimate point of view, not just kind of nominally imputed on the aggregates, but if it does exist ultimately, then it should be found within the aggregates, right? There's no other way. So if then you say, okay, then where is that, right? Parts of the body itself is uh, 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 any kind of the feelings self is consciousness the self and so forth, right? If you try to engage in such kind of ultimate analysis, we will not find it. So that is to basically what is meant by engage. Even in when analyzed or explored from the ultimate point of view, we will not find such kind of causal mechanism.
Yeah. Kandi yanti ka sura. Uma to zu cheba de chungwa. Karsi wala sana. Chunde ran shinji chuba ka ba yena su uma ba kiran chunde ran shinji chuba ka ba yena sura. Ni ken de ba samya ka ni chuta ken sam de ka ba re se. Chu me ken me se ko re se. Ora yena ran shinji yo ko ran shinji chi me na. Ni zu zu se yo ma ran zu zu se me na ni me re se ra me na se ora. Tuba kana ken de ba samya yo ma se de. Chuta ken sam de me ba cha re se ora. Jidenji chakpadan gegres kera uma badin jidenji chakpadan gegdo jiden tanya kyu yore debu yore tawadan shenda tesu tanya shore tesu meba chagre esigora yedesena kyunde tin gegma resigora uma bade jiden chakpadan gegma rese karesena kyunde tanya do tensu tene shakpasam re mado ane ranguni tuba yo ma rese tene shakpasam 인지 랑게 뭐 두바 중세게 요 말레스 어디지 시에도 수저바 저도 텔렌시 겨도 어디지 랍잖아
디쇼로가 시비샵게 들어오길라.
용주래 간데 단도 담아들 쳐들지래
So therefore, this particular verse number 47, the context here of the hypothetical debate here is that, lower philosophical Buddhist schools and non-Buddhist schools, they argue that if you maintain that causal mechanism, causality, or cause and effect does not inherently exist, then you also have to maintain that there is no such thing as the existence of causes and conditions giving rise to result. And because if you say that there is no inherent existence of cause and effect or causality, you're basically saying that there is nothing in the object, any kind of substantial existence or objective existence. And so therefore, what you're basically kind of accepting is a position where you do not accept any causes and conditions at all. And furthermore, you're basically going against the received convention of the world. And so therefore, this is in response to their kind of debate by saying that even though we do not maintain an inherently existing cause and effect, we still nonetheless maintain a causality where, depending on causes and conditions, in dependence to many causal factors, we actually conceptually infer the notion of causality. Many causal conditions giving rise to an effect, and that in turn is basically inferred by, conceptually, mentally inferred by the mind, or imputed by the mind. Yeah.
근데 서로가 쉽게 시구되어 뒤셔도 아까서래. 이대기 작보단 게 와도 바빠기도 와. 된다. 야, 쉽게다 시군이 되래도 쉽게다 시군이 부되게 아니 작보단 게 바빠기도 와. 이제 작보단 게 말해 시도 와. 단 뒤에 빼나 뒤좀 빼르시도 와. 뒤에 빼나 뒤좀 빼르시. 근데 뒤에 빼나 안 되버디 좀 와래시. Tēnā rīngbū yōzāng tōngdōng yōnggō tōgā sē. Tōngdōng yōzāng rīngbū yōgā rā chī, rīngdōng rā chī nē kū tāne, tēli tēn dī rīngā rī tōgā, tēli tēn wā dī tōngā rī tōgā, tēli tēn dī chōngbō rī tōgā, dī chōngā rī tōgā, tēli chīk lī tōni chī shāyā rī mā tō, tā chī tū chēmbū sēngē tēli tā rī chēmbū mē bā chī yō mā rā, tā chī tū chōngū sē tēli chōngū mē sē chī, mē chī kō tū tū bī, chīk chī lī tōni chī chū shā gu tōgā sē gu rā. Dī bē nā dī chō bē rī, rīngbū yō bē tōngū shī sē. Di kasi goresi na, teni, kasure. Rikpan di yobe na, tongme ma rikpan di yobe na, iban duji ji le di chunga re yese. Nga samsa, nga rangwa ji samlu yudu sa, rwa. Eni nga le tinde ba chigdo, nga di chub kuki da sa, ni le le chukpa di yungu wada. Sanko, ma rikpan di yobe na, iban duji le di chunga sa. Ma rikpan di yobe na, iban duji le di chunga sa. Pena, rīngbū yīwē tōngu shī nō sī, dīmbē chāyī sī tō, tādī tāmbu tāndu wā nīpa lē shī mī chā, shīpa kuñi ngā shī, tūpān tī dīmbē chī tīndē shī wā rā, tī sī rē sī kō rā. Yā mā rī pān dī kī bē nā dū shī, dī kī dē sī, rīngbū yīwē tōngu shī, dī kī bē nā dī kī bē rī, mā mī chī wā wē shī nō sī, dī kī bē nā dī kī sī, tī sī tō, dī kā sī kō rā sī na, mā rī pān dī kī bē nā, nīpa dū shī yī lē dī kī kī rē sī. Pena marmen jungaya wēshin nos. Di karsi goresi na, chi ngā bētā, tamuta nīwale sumbachi wēshi wēshi, ngā ban jungung kata resi, chi di tēne kata cha, chi di jungung kata cha, tēla tēne tē chungwa di shēga wara tanda. Chānyi chi tēne takwa ta, tēne kēba nī ji, rāngi ngō ma dhūba tēmba yēsi. Tēne kāsi, dēki bē nā dēki bē, māme yu bē wēshi nō stātunda, chīla tēne chī di chūgu rē sē, tē shēk duwa, bēk duwa, dēki bē nā dēki bē, rāmbu yu bē tōngu shēng sē, dēki bē nā dēki bē, māme yu bē wēshi nō sē, yā, o tē sē.
So, verse number 48 and 49 continues to basically point out that the Madhyamika position is something that does not actually contradict accepted worldly convention. And so 48, it says, when there is this that arises. So Madhyamikas are basically saying that, we accept this notion when there is this, when there is this that arises, just as when there is long, there is short. When it is produced, that arises, just as when a lamp is produced, light arises. So the worldly convention, but which basically says that, when this arises, when this sense of self or self-grasping arises, then that gives rise to kind of compositional actions, right? Kind of self-grasping in turn gives rise to, dependent on self-grasping, volitional actions arise, right? So this is something that we also maintain as well. And the example is dependent on there being something short, we also maintain the existence of long, right? So short and long, there is nothing, no entity that we can say is ultimately short or ultimately long, right? From the side of the object themselves. Depending on something that is shorter, a short kind of entity can become long or longer, right? And so therefore, nothing from the side of the object says it is ultimately short or ultimately long. And dependent on, the comparison between two objects, we conceptually impute the notion of long and notion of short, right? Similarly, when there is dependent on self-grasping, depend on that, compositional actions are imputed. So this is basically, Gela was saying that from a kind of grammatical point of view, this has a kind of, is a kind of locative case, right? When something exists, dependent on that, something else exists. The second is more in the kind of in the Sanskrit grammar and in the Tibetan grammar as well, a kind of case that depicts origination. Usually the fifth case that depicts origin. Something comes from something, right? As opposed to something is dependent on something. And so it says like the light or the illumination arises from the burning of a lamp, right? So in that sense, when from the arising of this, that arises, right? So this kind of dependent origination has these two senses.
Oh yeah, didn't. Oh, that did lesson, go lesson. Oh, she would do that.
No.
Oh yeah, that is that don't do it. That the guy said was na. Jumbu yona tongu nishi, or that peshan shadwa. Jumbu yona tongu tati. Jumbu si rangune to be jumbuchi yona. Kukadi na jumbu ran degora. Ko rangshinji jumbu to be na ko jumbu sute na ko jumbu chagora. Tile rangachi kiyona ko tondu chadora. Chonju said, Jimmy Jachinako, Chile Tede, Shawur Matoji, Koran, Yujin Wene, Jumbutan Chonju Jene, Chonju, the number Tamze, the Chonju round there were Mado, Koshanda Yena Menako, Joandre Mavishkora, what the Maris, you rangene, Chimbuda, Chonju, you don't want the you don't want the see your Maris. Tanya, Tosu, Tente, Tosu Medaz, so, do you want any low part on it? Samlitan Patashi, Jidenji Tanyaji Wangishasigora, Da Chashawara Tanda. Jidengi Kokaramiris Dana, Tewan Jidenji Tanyaji Wangishaba. Take a one mavage, Koran, Yukoran when it's Yuna. And the Lumba Kangaki, Chiparajin, which were a ming to the Chiparajin, where Shira. Pumba says you go Rangine, Pumba says you to Gwena. Some Pumba Silab Kungisura Chavara. What in the Kasura? Tandi the Damaja, or Sushigo. Jumbu Yona Tongu de Yolas, that Amokin Pero. Jumbu Yona Tongu de Yorese. Dewa Yosan Tungese Yungura. Tunge Yosan Devas Yungura. Kotungechi Mana Devas Tanya Logashi Yonasi Omara. So Chigli Chik 30 Kochik Namshachi Shaku Yora. Or Dinashing over Samatira. Tendichi Sozu Chiche. The Medadene, some Tanda Medachipa, Tanya Tashiti. Tavarang Kalan Jidan Tanya Mato Tilin Davis Kalan Yomara. Jidan Tanya de Wangzabachura. Karil Mingtagin and Tire Marita Yimaita Yomaita Kanga, they control Yara. Oh, the Jumbu Yona Tungu Yore. Jumbu Ranguni to the Jumbu Yona number Tamja ringbuyogo라. 랑문의 집에 동무이나 넘바 탐제되고라. 랑문의 집에 이동왕 이동명 와서 어떤데 뒤에서 말해서거라. 랑경 올래마에서 랑경 올왕게 네 지금보다 동바세대 주에서 말이야. 랑경 올서 고난면에 말은 부인 나동동이세. 근데 수 유지 랑화제는 수주에요 말아. 랑화에 먹으면서 뒤라. 또주에 땡데를 맞도 그 랑화제는 수주에시요 말이야. 땡데 속과 시제네 당에 딱수 시제 디왕게 남샤 켈랭 구하라. 링부여나 동원이 랑경 올래마에서 뭐 주고요 말이야. 그러나 마음이 좋으서는 어떤 정도라. 마음이 매는 어떤 중에 말아. 질 뜨네 질린 되는 거라. 마음이 좋아 매버셔. 어자 좋아 매버신 시거라. 어때지려나 우리도.
So verse number 49, in this particular verse, Nagarjuna continues to basically explain his position that the Madhyamaka view is something that does not contradict the world or the world of conventionality. And here he says, when there is long, there is short. They do not inherently exist or exist substantially or exist from their own side, that is to say. And so basically, just as in the conventional world, we can maintain that something is long in dependence upon something that is shorter, right? The notion of long and short actually do not exist inherently, substantially from the side of the object themselves or objectively, that is to say. Because if that is the case, then something, as I mentioned earlier, something that is long will always remain long. Something that we say that is short will always remain short, right? So long and short is basically something there, and in comparison, we conceptually impute this particular notion of long and short. So it's a kind of a interdependent phenomenal experience or arising in the mind that based on something, we can say that something is longer or shorter, right? And so therefore, the notion of something long and something short do not inherently exist from their own side. So even though there's nothing in the object themselves that says, oh, this is long or this is short, right? Because of these causal factors, the world says this is shorter or this is longer, this is shorter, this is long, and therefore we have to accept the worldly convention. A Madhyamaka is somebody who actually maintains the worldly convention without actually resorting to a notion of inherent existence. They can perfectly maintain the worldly convention without resorting to inherent existence. That inherent existence means basically independent existence that is not dependent on causes conditions, right? But what the Madhyamaka is saying that, like everything arises dependently, based on other causes and conditions. And due to those interdependent factors, there is a conventional imputation, or conventional imputation or agreement, a conventional agreement. And then Madhyamaka say that, we maintain that. We also maintain such a conventionality, but that conventional language or concept is based on many causes and conditions. And so therefore we can maintain such causality without resorting to kind of an inherently existing causality.
Oh yeah. 단디 가서래. 서로 강압주도 강압주 마신이 되더라. 되게 뒤던다도 시작도. ngabjungaji tanda shegdo. Te kari shegorse, yume kosa, yume ki tanda, tate tanda tanda shegor tatunda. Yume tate tanda tosuna ni, kola tukires ti shegdo. Tani da trewe uti tanda, ti kombolite ti tukires, kola tukires ti shegdo. Te tari kyunde ke tong shinse, te tari kyulen trebu kewa seme tong shinse gora. Te tari kyunde ke tong shinse. Kyulen trebu kewa seme tong shinse. Ti cheba maro yu seme kyunde tente kelen gora, kitili ten trebu titu juan so kanga kelen gora. Sako cheba nukuma resti nendenje she gora. Te tari kyunde tanyebe seme kewa tong shinse. 타니베 쳔메 통하다가 고침바시고라 똑베 타니게 왕게 샤바 타니 짬도 여바 똑베 딱삼셔야지 뒤로와 대점을 샤고를 해야 된다는 말도 똑베 딱세 정말 용그리 해야 된다 말아 똑베 딱삼서 대점을 샤고를 해야 타니 가린세 근데 줄렌 제부께와 타니베 쳔메 통신에서 대다리 균제 게 통신에서 되라 직된되니 직된되나 지신도세 되라 직된되는 지신도세 동시에 사벨엔 요구께와 따르세거라 지신도세 사벨엔 요구께와 지다와 대신도세거라 대신도 내 직된되나 귤레네 가서 균제디야 똑베 트레벌에 좀 켈랑 그래서 똑베 트레벌에 똑베 바 타냐 따바 대삼리야 여바 켈랑 그래서 그라 똑베 트레벌에 똑베 가르 트레벌에 디디레서 지게 타냐 시셔라 어찌나 시켈랑 그래서 그라 전에 따고 좀 들어봐 디마르 코랑근에 지따야 시와라시 랑근에서 디메르스 그라 지신도这类情况开朗白是，这什么现在我们什么都做手了，那军队了什么都做刚刚的，都被这边来的那情况的开朗过来，都被打什么都开朗过来也是过来，都被打过什么的，都被忘给下过下样呢，他年纪忘给下过，这样几天的他年纪忘给人家送不到，现在的都搞不出。东北你写的这样几年级，他年纪忘给人家短短把你买一弄噻，大概下下我的，这咱们就清白些我的谁多，清白些了，都不让这钱嘛让了送啊送啊，钱嘛送啊送清白，这咱们就这不些我的，他真的，山东是讲的，那这讲的是这，到这里山东是，这种完了是，这类情况开朗白是，경제에서라 깨와다 누구 사벨에 누구 깨와 다르서라 깨와다고 깨와 신도스 지된데나 경제를 소바테서 강가 똑베 트레발에 중아 똑베 딱바 삼데 켈랑고래 해서라 남샤 가르치네 켈랑고 지된데나 지신도 트레레 중아 켈랑데 똑베 트레발 똑베 왕게 샤고 당연히 왕게 샤고데 대삼le 켈랑고래 해서라 유랑원에 트베게 세워 말아 매번이도 개밀레스 어딘데 또왜 떠봐서도 타니 되게 와라 근데 채다와 말해서 음악바디 채다와 말해서 야 매번이도 개밀레스 매번마와 말해서 매번마와 이나니 주께 walende 부대와 중에 주미게 walende 부동계 중에 사벨에 누구께 와서 버텨서 켈링 말아 남바 상계 버거데 개치슈스는 음악바디 땡전데 버려 중앙에서 개치슈스게 와라 근데 고치를 때지 지 되네 요하시래 마도 때문에 거기서 라와진의 주탄에 지고 말아 남샤 어딘데서这类情况开朗呗都别这吧是吧他年纪忘给都别小别忘给是开朗他年纪忘给小别的开朗过来是没把你都开没的时候就说的等当把没让我都知道没让我的没那样没把的开朗给我嘛的是等你打过什么的有些땡지 되버려 좋아해 있어. 대다 남바 요네 매나 땡제들아. 따와면 바상만 고야 돼. 지대 제바 볼라 소바 샨다 카르카나 땡지 되버려 좋아. 그다 깨는 틈무 많이 배 그다 깨는 때는 제부터 깨기도 하세. 되게 봐. 지지 교코나 사벨에 요구 깨야 되지 라면도 코라라리 Negachil teni kiki warmado, ti mainge shendaji samurtani ti koye ti mogose, wongju cheni yonga yomara. So tenchi debali juwante pe, kechen buchige wara. Mutin dumaru ya teji lamna, disa. Meba nitu, meba ma insa tuntari.
Sure. So then we go to verse number 50. 50 and 51 basically explains that through understanding or realizing the view that is free from the extremes, free from the two extremes, that is extreme of eternalism and nihilism, that one gains liberation or state of cessation. So the one kind of extreme that one can fall into is, and other lower philosophical schools and non-Buddhist schools actually point to the Madhyamikas that you have fallen into the extreme of nihilism. When you say that things do not inherently exist, you're basically, when there is no inherently existing causality, you're basically, it amounts to basically saying that there is therefore no cause, no effect, therefore you are actually destroying causality altogether. So this is kind of refuting such a view, a continuation of that, where it says that, Nagarjuna says here, just as in the world, right? Just as in this particular world, in the world, just as in the world of conventionally accepted convention, accepted linguistic and conceptual convention, we say that we see that when there is cause, there is effect, and so we see or perceive here basically means perceiving or seeing to the conventional valid cognition or conventional mind. And so the kind of to a conventional valid cognition of pramana, there is the appearance that when something is there, something arises, right? And so this particular appearance itself to the conventional mind is what is meant by imputation. Imputation is not like really something active, or volitional or intentional. So when something exists, something arises, and then the conventional valid cognition, pramana, to that conventional valid mind, it appears like that. To a conventional mind that is kind of accepted in the world. And that is the appearance to the conventional mind itself is what is meant by conventional imputation, right? So causality exists in that sense as a kind of a conceptual proliferation based on something that is happening on the basis of designation. There's a conceptual proliferation, a conceptual appearance, a conceptual designation. And that is the conceptual designation itself is the conceptual mind, right? So phenomena, causality exists in such a conventional manner. Therefore phenomena is conventionally designated, conventionally imputed in that sense. But it doesn't mean that we can designate or impute anything whatsoever. This is not the meaning, right? When there is a valid basis of designation, a conventional valid cognition arises. And so in that sense, Madhyamikas can still maintain that causality is existent. So therefore, but the Madhyamikas are saying that we should be satisfied with that. This just kind of simple conventional acceptance, right? Things are something happening on the basis of designation, something arises, gives rise to something, and then the conventional mind to the conceptual mind, something appears, or it appears like a kind of causal mechanism. And so, so it's conceptually designated in that sense. So Madhyamika is saying that we should be satisfied with that. Simba, we should be satisfied that the kind of acceptance of causality by our conventional mind, which is also not contradicted by other conventional mind. We should be satisfied with such a causal mechanism. That if we try to actually think that, oh, a causal mechanism is not just conceptually designated or imputed, that it must inherently exist, it must objectively exist, it should exist from the side of the object, and we try to look in the object to find for it, we will not find it. So therefore, conventionality, or causal mechanism or causality or cause and effect, therefore has no independent existence. It has no inherent existence, but it exists as a kind of a dependently arising phenomena, dependent on many causal conditions in the basis of designation, but also our own conceptual imputation as part of that kind of interdependent arising.
Oh yeah. This one.
No.
Oh yeah. Oh, Tandiri Dakar. Oh, Tandati. Kocha and Dira Casa, Meba Mama inside the Sara. The Yeva Mama inside the Shagara water, and Nimi. No, yes, the combalet in the third or Shagara. And Goba, etc. Goba said, Kocha, Kocha, Yeva Tawacha, my insegora. Kocha Umaba Zose. Tamba Yeva Tawacha, my insegora. Kadesana. Julian Drebu, Tamba Trubatin Gogi or this, and Goba Ase. Julian Drebu, Jet, Tamba Trubes, Rangan and Jotan Gogi or this. So go Tamba Trubati Kaudopa. Yopama de Remadua, Tamba Yopama de Remadua. Goba Ase. And then Minjute, Tamba, Tamba Trubatin Gogi Escora. Goba. Trailer Majua Yanda Chishi, Nijurvase. Trailer Majua so talk about Sigora. Tandamba Truban Goba Yese. Talk be Trevale Majua. Talk be Wangi Shaba Maimba. Yanda Yurangwine Truba, Yanda Watruba, or Tindeshi Kelingi or Maresora. Talk be Trevale Majua, Yanda Watruba, and Tishin Yidu Juba Ke Nena. Kelena Yuveta Wachendura. Goba Trailer Majua Yanda Chishin Nijurba se Yanda Chishin Nijurba Kelen Yuba Nimin Jurse Tobe Wangi Shagba Maimba Yukuran when Truba de Kelen Gilmaresora. Tina Nimi temperature, this on the Oma Bade Lejundela Sobatis Chawachin but the Kelen Cheba Mawa Mares, Meba Mawa Mares. Oh, today, Tobe Tanya, you want to shagwa somewhere. You were the killing you to that. And I got so that. Tobe Wangi Shagwa Mato, you run when you to a killing better. You have a mountain matters, don't about your mountain matters. This on that tiny that Java, la temper days. Run when I'm the Tonashi, you carry in a temper. You don't want me on a chance. Rawadu Truba Namjitonde Nashin killing your mother, Titomba Congiora. Chawachin gets all the mailers there, mother, Dagachin gets it, tended so to Tope Wanka Pasha was some chawaching with some the Toyagora. Dear killing got this on the tiny la madden body. Chebetalam halo. Nothing on the Tona Nashingi. Dr. Lam halo, Chetalam halo. 딱새게 타니다 trewe 우메 람데 또 벌 때네 아니 공동아제 차도만질라서 뭐 충충도 그래서 저한테 타니다 trewe 람공벌데 저도 그래서 디켈링 요시가라 저는 니라메데 되서 저는 님이 때문에 저를 되래 되지리다 뭐가 단지 그래야 어디지
So then verse 51 is just continuation of this particular line of thinking, where he says, Gokpa refuted. And so refuted here means the ultimate causality is refuted. And so Madhyamikas, not only actually we avoid the pitfall of falling into the extreme of eternalism, nihilism, but we also are able to avoid falling into the pitfall of eternalism. So therefore, he's saying like ultimate causality is also refuted because without okay, maybe I'm going to read this here. It's a good translation. Ultimate causality is refuted. It would be absolutist to accept that it has not arisen from conceptual fabrication, and that it is truly real, just as it is. Its ultimate reality is not accepted, thus not relying on the two extremes one is liberated. So therefore, a kind of ultimate causality is a causality that is not dependent on conceptual fabrication, means basically conceptual designation. On the basis of designation, something happening on the basis of designation, and then a conceptual appearance appears to the conceptual mind, which is basically a way of saying conceptually fabricating or conceptual designating or conceptual imputing, right? So without like and so therefore without depending on such conceptual designation, we do not accept a kind of a causal mechanism or causality that is not dependent on such conceptual designation or conventional designation, right? So we don't also fall into the extreme of eternalism and kind of a position of proceeding an inherently existing causality. Therefore, those who rely on such a position free from the two extremes achieve liberation.
됐어
No.
뭐야 단지 다시는 아주 많이 당가 숨들어 아주 많이 당가 숨들 시작을 당하죠 네 다른데 뭐 그래서 아주 많이 좀 다들 실제로 빼셔봐서도 그 땅만 되는 아주 시에로와 단위 숨을로한테 지시에로와 어디 실제로 빼고는 시에도 이게 아주 많이다 말씀이더라 뒷배고네 땅만 듣는데 힘받대 실제 빼고는 시에도 저는 때간데 빼간데 작아도서는 다른 내내 통해 수제라 다른 분의 통계의 수대 다른 분의 통하나시 타니버도 여버되게 진짜 통말을 세워진 통그리 해서거라 다른 내내 통해서 녀와 남제 싸워 통해서 먼저 그냥 니마단 나와도 다른 분들도 고고 진짜 야부시다 이걸 해줬던 게 오마라 원해도 통계 오마라 다이네 나와 통사가 저라 티나 신고부 강강 알아서 대고난이 따지고 올리는 거라 뒤빼대로 다른 내내 통해서 녀와 남지 싸워를 통해서 다른 부족을 통화돼 세부 통화 말해서 이나 고타니부터 딜에 나가지 세부 전 통그래 해서 거라 배차라 미주게데 추이나서 다른 부도 따와다 타니분에 따와다 게데 집어 통그 이나서 거라 근데 다른 분에 제만라부터 사kam부터 니마 잡을 게 없으나 미기 통그라 추나 신지바 준로시 통그라 르다다 도저까지 충분히 레삼기도 와 그 주도 게르시는 거라는데 내 주도 거지. 근데 미교세도 그 춘다고 했던 거라 다른 분에 주된도는 개요 말이지만 모두 통해 개요 말아. 사kam모도 통해. 미주게 대 주에나 대단 여와 남제 찜에 통데 통곡으로 와서 가라. 다들 정분에 통하다 타니분에 통하든다고 해도 말아서 나와 통하다 지지 강가 통하든다고 말아. 나올이야 어디 되라. 그냥 아주 살이야 대네 따와대 아주 저는 전부 리리리에서는 남산 소화게 시작하면도 그와데네 말레블레시 와라 그한테나 레블레시 간도대요라 다 건조 이내 맞다데 리리리리 야부시 통게 와라 아주 나와를 통하는 시지 리리리에서 티템퍼리처 이내 따데 아주 대대대네 건데네 맞다데 레블레레 마도 리리 통로시 마라 시도는 한 남간도네 통으로 맞듯이 자꾸 다 니원에 땅게 내려오네 땅게 니 통주 집어 용해요 말아. 아 지다라 비디서 토알레서 오래되라. 더리네 통해서 녀와 남제 싸워를 통. 디페델레 미주게데 추이나 녀와 남제 찜에 통세 미주데 다른 분에 미주 통한테 봐줘대 타니분에 땅게데 미주 통고 말아 지만네 사kam부 통기를 맞듯이 디페해서 거라 어디질러는 담부 빼대
So then verse number 52 and 53 explains the difference between those who see the reality as it is and those who don't see it through using some examples. So therefore, I'm going to read it here. Is a form that is viewed from afar is seen clearly by those nearby. If a mirage were actually water, why would those nearby not see it? So therefore, it's point to basically the difference between appearance and reality, right? And so it's the kind of this is the illustration or example here. Like when if we view something from a distance, we see a particular form, right? If that particular form is kind of really as it is, as seen from the far, then those who are nearby should actually see it even more clearly, right? So the example here is like mirage. When a dry desert with sands is kind of and there's a sunlight, like extreme heat of the sunlight, and on a dry desert, from a distance it appears as if there is water, right? So that is what is meant by mirage. And so animals actually get confused, and from a distance it seems like the kind of the kind of flickering mirage is actually like a running river or running water or something like that, and so they run toward it. But when they come close to it, there is no river, right? So therefore, if the mirage is truly as it is, like as seen from afar, then those who come close to it, why don't they see it? And so the kind of rhetorical question, of course, we don't see it, right? Because there is no mirage to begin with.
오야 다들 오마 솔루테라 좀 말씀드려 지대로 남게네세 지den데네 양다 통서라 어디 가서 그래서는 지대는 가라도 소소하게 오다고 와 ngô karil tewe na te nelu ngone te tongala tong mare se te ta ringbu re se gora ringwa na shi re soso pa namto kare kumshi kare ne te na shi che lo chi ta chi tongira ma to kuchi ma chi tong ma to soso jo te kona ni la to ba ringwa nam ji se gora ne je ngone le ba ta da de ta ringbu ne te na shi re se gora te kare tonggo se ne chama yu rangwe ne yo ba tra ra chi ne rangwe ne yo ba tra Nyen rechine rangune yoba, yido wang rechine rangune yoba, yido mewa rangune yoba, tinte tongte resera. Te wange chakdang da sem ko namju jima chi shinchi yo mara chudu yora kanga. O tinte, chita ta ringwa namju nese, ta ringwa soso kiwa nga zuka ngobe netang pa tatang te sigora. Ti nechu ngune tili pa ta nyibu reyo mara tanda. Lo lenji lo kare tong na te cha chiwu to meda tonga yungura jinse rita meda tonga nyaoba ita tando hala soba meda tonga yora so ki liu ki chakdang tanga le dan drawa tanga tinte wangi chikpa nanshi tonga yoma re penden riya tanga chakdang kiye de kanga chikpa yoma ra so tatang ki wangi meda cha yora o tinte chita rinwa nam jene jiden dine yangda tong so tonga nanshi wane yin samge wara Rang tong de samgura sim chu denge china nyamba cha de na ko korang de yin samgura ma do nga chu de yo samro chi ma ro nga ra de temba yin samgura ti nga zu chama yi do me o ta nga shen ta cho shen cho la so ba kanga ta ta de lo lan je ko ra ta ta chi yo ro ti na shi ta gre si go ra chi ta ro nam je ne ji den ne yang da tong so tong na shi temba yin samgura yang da ba yin sam 소소 간데 통과해서 유랑원에 요바 통과래. 소소 떡배 왕게 파샤바데 삼게 요 말에. 또 삼을 땅나데 하고야 손도 지워래. 소소 떡배 왕게 샤바. 다르다 니엔데 지메나. 고 가보 용게 쉬지 야보시나야. 지금 어디도 남산다 아니 현다 차도로. 소소 떡배 왕게 차게 얼마도 고 유랑원에 있는 자자한테 니니라 대고라. 이동화대 대고라. 이동 모데 대고라. 대응도 소소 삼을 땅저 개발체 로도 지체죠. 어디 손자 소소 따당 가리나 띵원에 인삼 매대 덴바 인삼 그러마도 나 투대 요 삼로시요 말. 어디에도 지대 르와 남전에 지대는 양다 통 소소 그 통주 난시 양다 바 인삼 원에 덴바 인삼 거라 덴바 로바 인삼 거라 소소 가리 통고라서는 자당이 당가다 켜다 수대 양이다 개시 중다 시부지 이거 통과하라 어디 나시 담바인 삼겨라 지다르와 남제는 지대는 양다 통세 대다르 대단 예 남제 메통 세메 미규시 타니보제 세제네 중원에 삼루탄에 소수 통주 나시 마샤바시 삼루탄데 어 대가 담부텐데 삼게 때레메도 따테레도 사니 셴 마모요라 소소 통주대 덴바샤는 테라니 텔레 데바케 메삼나니 야도에케 오마라 시제 사바신에케 오마레 다가 코카리네 히데르삼 팅아라즈 티켄 시시테도 코라카리나 힌데요레삼 그르마도 가란치 제네 세주지 제정에 신네 하고양원에 대해 삼수 삼로 지마라 코라카리네 히데요레삼 지지 셰요레삼 틴데게 오마라 원에데 가르레삼 소소 통하나 시르베 마르베 딱세 치고 있어라 티제는 녀로 제는 원에 내수도 하고 온도라 티직된 시다는 거 보니까 다르와 담보업도 갈다는 소소 따다나시 대마라 다짜지시 아니 녀로 쳐서는 원에 내수 통통이라 어디서도 스타르와 남제는 직된 되는 양다서 대다 녀와 남제는 다 내룰래 다 녀로 쳐서 내줄래 다 제제 대다 뒤는 원에는데 가르에서 어제 챙겨들 시고라 대다 녀와 남제네 매동 재미 미주시세 내고 담부나 신데 소소 통화데 템바레 삼텐데 통고 말해 시고라 이 담부 미주벨 차선다 다른 문에다도 이 통고요래 유치된로는 매바 하고 요라 어찌나 시제 타니 보체네 땅게다 다른 분 남주 로랭기 따다니 된다고 말해 시고라 어딘데 맨도 지대로와 남제는 지대는 양다 통 대다 nye 남제 메통세 Semi Mijushins, or Tedanya Namje, Nick and the Tungumares, or Rashid Yanda Batuba, the Tungumares. Nyawa te Papa the concert to show the Tekunang Chavasing, Papa concert to 60 Tiliati, Kevata Kemeta, you don't want to, you don't know so. Nanjuk Tunzu Nashim Maresigora. Yes, on that Tanya that Java to Thomson and it turned over there. Oh, consider. Tanya at the public Yamshat to share, public concert to share it. You got a major, the better Tamaland or something. We take and do my son this one. Chitter and I'm getting chitin in the other home. Chitter, Namje. And then Meton Semi Kebata Pemila Soba, you don't want a meon la soba, Semasigora, Semasri, you don't want to bet in the Sigora. Semi Mikushinse. Make you tired and win it, don't get that time you win it, don't get in Damason. Tiny win it, don't get it, make you Tungumara, tired and win it, don't get it, Tungudo. To choose your Sosogi. Lolengi Karaton, I think when in some day. Oh, this love Natisa.
Verse number 53. Still, we are on the same subject. And here we just discussed the example, the difference between those who see reality as it is and those who don't see reality as it is. In this particular verse, I'm going to read it first. As in the case of a mirage, those far away here, basically far away from seeing reality as it is. So far away means like, those who are like those who have a long way to go before they see reality as it is. That is basically ordinary beings. And those who are nearby in the end basically means those who are closer to seeing the truth, seeing emptiness, seeing reality as it is, basically the Aryas and so forth. So the difference is made between these two being individuals, those who are far away from seeing the truth and those who are closer to seeing the truth, the Arya beings. So therefore it says, just as in the case of a mirage, those far away who view the world see it to be real just as it is. So basically, for those who are far away from seeing the reality, seeing the truth of emptiness, they see the world as truly existing. That is the kind of point here. They see friends, enemies as intrinsically existent enemies, truly existent enemies, enemies that are actually existing from the side of the object without our mental conceptual designation. They see things as good or bad in and of themselves, right? Like has a kind of a substantial reality to these notions of good and bad. Kind of what we call a self-characteristic, swalakshana, right? Having this all their own intrinsic existence. When we say something is good, there is something good on the side of the object. And so based on that, those who are far away from the truth then generate negative emotions such as desire, such as anger, and because of that they engage in negative karmic actions and so forth. And that's how they suffer, resulting with associated resulting suffering, right? So it is basically like someone who's very mentally insane or mentally confused. They begin to see things and hear things, and to them it's really truly happening. Phenomenologically, from the point of view of personal experience, it's sounds are real, forms are real, right? Nobody can convince that person otherwise, right? But then, even though the phenomenological confusion is real, there is no kind of actual basis of designation, right? There is no truth. So So that is what is meant here. They see those who are far away from the truth, see things as if they intrinsically exist, as if they truly exist. But on the other hand, for those who are closer to reality, closer to seeing truth or reality as it is, that is closer to seeing the reality of emptiness, for them, they do not see things as intrinsically existent due to their being, and due to there being an absence of sign, basically sign of intrinsic existence. So, sign, signlessness, sign here, sign could be many sign, conceptual signs, but here, a sign here means conceptual sign, a sign that actually clings to intrinsic existence, right? And they see, therefore, see phenomena as signless, in the sense that there is no conceptual grasping to intrinsic existence. And so therefore, just like mirage, right? Things appear to be intrinsically existent, but when you analyze, then there is no mirage. When you analyze, there is no intrinsic existence. So therefore, there is like through an analogy, a difference between those who are far away from seeing reality and those who see it. That is kind of discussed here.
Oh yeah. 풍부한 신지 주바가 와식도 어디 풍부한 신지 주바가도 어디 간데르스나 지들 미규 춘자와 추미 돈도 많이 봐서도 미규도 다른 분에 떠나 춘자버려 지워데 돈다 딱저잖아 돈데시 딱이네 추려 되어 말와 돈다 추려 되어 말아 지들 미규 춘자와 추미 돈도 멤버다 추마레스 돈도 딱저지게나 이거 하고도 돈다냐 추레데 요마레스 다른 분의 수수 동줄 때 중마도 쓰라 대신 풍부 따라와 대신 풍부 수수 풍부 쓰라 풍부 소부라서 바테 풍부가부터 쓰세요 또 소봉이 잘되고 대신 풍부 따라와 대다 다음이 좀더 민세 미주디 춘다와 돈아야 추레데면 도와서 딱세잖아 대신도 수수 풍부 대해서라 안에 정신지 주바 그 당니 임바다부지 통거래대 정신지 주베 당니 말해서 양다과 주바 말해서 정신지 주베 당니도 통하대 양다과 주바 말해서 때 다세대 간설고지요 말아 최탐제 다음에서도 우마바 남지 최탐제 다음에서도 어디 다시도 당니 쓰거라 최탐제 랑외 당니도요 말아 분배 당니대 랑외 당니도요 말아 분바 랑외 다요 말아 당니대 랑게모요 말아 랑에 랑경어 요마르 랑게 랑신 요마르 랑게 당니 요마르 어딜 거이라 쇼탐제 다음에 봐야 돼 내가 저기 지나 용기 바꿔서 로건 다와다 봐 시게벤 잡아 임베나 결라 다지 저안에 관심 없는 남자 시험라 라말레베 뭐 랑신데세 다다세 텔레스코프 치다 시험라 라말레베스도 타니베 셰바 공게 샤바 마이바 유코랑은에서 여다가 통하지 시거라 들라다 관심 없는 남자 시험 타니엔 딱 발라서 텐데 소네 딱 발라 라말레바 대왕게 샤바 마이바 코랑 유코랑은에서 여삼자 여나 니 라와도 여바스 거라 들라다 저원에 관심 없는 남자 시험라 라말레베 뭐라시데 때문에 다음에 보시도 대야 최다 강사지 남반이시 강사 다음에 수이다 어디 최탐제 다음에 세데 들고라 한다 우마테지로 chen 단디 다세데 랑게 땅니 지 마두가 랑게 ngô 마두가 랑게 랑신 마두가 랑게 랑신지 마두가 랑게 땅니 마 랑게 ngô 마두가 어떻게 찍버리시라 단디 그래서 시다르 미주 춘다와 춤에 돈도 많이 봐세 대신 풍부 따라와 저다 다미 돈도 매 풍부 따라랑 땅이도 주반다와 통그레데 랑의 땅이도 주베 다 말해서 돈도 야고 랑의 주베 땅이도 주베 말해서 거라 미주 춘다와도 춤이 대신도 배차라 네 풍부대야 Any Rangshinji Trube Tangi Mares or Mind the Rangshinji Trube Tangi to Naya, Tangi to Trube Mares. Oh, this is Lana. Kumbuta Misha Dotanda. Around to Truba de Mevera. And then the Dagi was it. Naya say, Kesha de Pumbutianguda, Sobota to Siongara. Oh, this is yeah.
So verse number 54 is now refutation of self of aggregate. Earlier in the earlier verses, there were discussions on selflessness of person. Now this is discussion on selflessness of phenomena, and among the selfless phenomena, the most important is aggregates, right? In terms of like generating attachment and aversion and associated like karmic actions. First is basically I, notion of a truly existing I, and then second is notion of truly intrinsically existing mind. And of those, one's own psychophysical aggregates are most prominent in terms of giving rise to craving and aversion and associated negative emotions and actions and so forth. Although there are a lot of phenomena out there in the world. So therefore, this is the self of aggregate is something that does not truly exist. So self here does not mean personal self. When the word self is used, Atma is used in the kind of philosophical context, it doesn't necessarily refer to personal self. Self basically means own being or self-nature, or something that intrinsically exists, right? True existence, own being, right? A kind of a nature that is independent of our own conceptual designation, something that it means it exists from the side of the object. There is inherent existence. That is what is meant by self here. So we should not confuse that. So therefore, it is explained here with an example. A mirage seems to be water from a distance, right? But it is not water. No, is it real? No, is it real means no, is it intrinsically real from the in that sense. Likewise, the aggregates seem to be real, seem to be a self, means a self means intrinsically existing entity. For those who are far from seeing reality as it is, but they are not a self. They are not a self means they do not have self-own being or self-nature or intrinsic existence, right? Nor are they even real. Means they are not inherently non-existent. So this is basically a kind of a discussion on the selflessness of the psychophysical aggregates, feeling, physical body, and so forth.
This are.
Oh.
Yeah. And they don't make you learn in the churches. Make you lia. The churches some time when it is true. Yora, Tina Nirida to the Manga Chusara. And community shooting with some donny. Me a true yora in the true women. The churches somebody, some somebody is, and then a song let the children something draw in a segura. Can draw a okay, they shoot the meadows, oh, they show you a tagging time, maybe shasha. In the Zinico Norva, Tambune Maver, oh, the Guinea Maver, and Norrism. In the some glory, Tima somebody, oh, the Guin shoot the event, time, maybe shasha, some nor a race over. Make you learn in the churches. Make you law someday. Then it should be some little. Tell it chimber, touch you, Pataram. Then do the Toyo Marwa Sakambumata. Oh, that I should me do something in order. the taking it to the north, and when it should never to us, the Hako. Never said somebody knew but is what me to learn in this shit. Somebody someday, then a song a lay. Get it to the meadow shit, somebody knew Limbanese. Can you do? Oh, the Mapchunganga. Yeah, did it. Can you do?
Yes. So then we go to verse number 55. Seeing a mirage, one might think that is water, and then we go up to it, right? This especially happens to wild animals in the desert. They are very thirsty, partially because of their thirst. The kind of the urge to impute is very strong, and then secondly because of the sun's light hitting the desert kind of sands in a particular way. Is a kind of a appearance of a mirage, and then they go towards it, right, thinking that there's actual water there, and it also happens to human beings as well, but mostly to wild animals, and so once you get there and say, oh, and then you begin to think that, oh, there was water earlier, but now when I come closer, there is no water, right? Like coming closer to seeing reality as it is. If you think like that, if you entered in such a thinking, oh, there was water, but now as I come closer to it, there is no water, that is kind of stupid thinking. This is basically, what is being mentioned here. We have to understand that there was no water. There was no water to begin with. That is the kind of point that is being kind of the instruction that is being given here, as we must understand that there was no water to begin with. It was a mirage. There is no true existence to begin with.
You saw,
So yeah, if one still grasps at the water, thinking the water isn't here, it'd be quite foolish. Yeah, just the translation. Now,
oh, yeah. Oh, that on that day, Castle. Ngapchunganga danga do the raw, Ngapchunganga danga do the shake on dinner. Ngapchunganga danga do take Yeme do Tawa upon it. Yeme do Tawa Mabana quality Maresera. Rava Cheta down. Tata Luna and quality Omara, Taji the Ukongura. Yeme do Tawa Mabana. In it, Taba Toto Marese. Tishekwa, Tatanga to this. Tasholva Nibadera. Tishimi Tabu in Judan, yes, Mebashe. Zimba de Momba de Momba, you know, Metro said it. Petamando Sara. Oh, petition do Sora. And then, as a tongue there, Ranshiji Yoba, Tona Ranshiji Menge, move to Samasura, Nana Ranshin Bebe, move to Samasura. And then, Tishin Mikutabu, Judese, Nana Ranshin Bebe, Mikutabu. Mikute Nayan, Konanashi Omaro, Narazu, over to Kanga, Ranshiji Yoba Tungi or the Tinashi Omaro. So Nana Ranshin Bebe, Mikutabu, shoot to Samasura. Oh, Tishin Mikutabu, Jide. Pumbu soban데 상마 세거라 니네지 pumbu 랑신지 여서는 따다롱도라 nga 랑신지 여바데 치 매바 샤샤섬드네 몽바레선 제요 말와 심바테네 몽바데스 테 몽바레 테 코나니 장라 몽바 요나니 콜레 트토 마레스 티시미주타부 엔지데 여자 매바셰 네 심바테네 몽바데 몽바요는 메줄로 다든다 타니다 제베 유디마도나니 조통마로 제발롱니 동반이 예술에 중들어 소바다 저와체네 바데 동신하니 르마도 시지로 말해 제달롱도 요라 니 강거 찌미시그라 개와다 미교 강거 찌미시그라 되나시 기대 요청 해봐시 몽바데 몽바데 Ranshiji Yeshe Zimbane Digo Mara Mesne Chetan Handura. So Takseke Tangi Dan Treve Udi Tokuyora Tunda. Chetan Luna Digo Mara, Tata Tandangazi Chitan Toya Dinashin Tonti Yin Samtane Digo Mara. 통주 나신이 3년 되게 말해. 통주 나신 말에 원래 위는 원래 매다 매월에 3년 되게 말와. 당시에 탄이다 저 의도 공부하래. 또 랑원에 매 땡진 레벨 중에 수지 여 자와진 게지 여섬. 땡에 따고 좀도 여서 최탐제 땡에 따고. 땡제 this is 공부해서. 디지털은 돼서.
So verse number 40, 55 and 56 is basically explaining that liberation only happens when one is free from the two extremes, the extreme of clinging to inherent existence and extreme of clinging to non-existence. That is eternalism and nihilism, right? So verse number 56 says, likewise, it is confused to apprehend this mirage-like world as either existent or totally non-existent, right? So mirage-like world here basically refers to, right now we are discussing the aggregates here. So the world here really refers to the psychophysical aggregates. The world is the world of psychophysical aggregates. So with regard to the psychophysical aggregates such as form, consciousness, feeling, and so forth, if we say that, things exist as if they appear to us, that is, they appear to us as if they intrinsically truly exist, that is eternalism, like nihilism, right? And therefore, if you that says so clinging to such a notion of intrinsic inherent existence lead us within conditioned existence. There is no selflessness, and everything that we do, even wholesome actions, are done with clinging or attachment to a notion of intrinsically existing stuff and phenomena. But on the other hand, due to the logic of emptiness, we understood it as if nothing exists whatsoever. Then we fall into nihilism. And if we are entertaining a nihilistic position, then there is the danger of not respecting causality, not observing karma, and so forth. Like thinking that, oh, the emptiness understanding gives me this license, right? A wrong understanding of emptiness, that is to say that, not to observe karmic causality. So that is again another pitfall. So therefore, in order for liberation to happen, for liberation to be attained, in order to attain liberation, we must be free from both these two extremes, that is the extreme of eternalism and nihilism. So that is the middle way. The middle way philosophy is the philosophy that is basically free from the two extremes in that sense. So therefore says, likewise, it is confused to apprehend this mirage-like world as either truly existent or totally non-existent. If confused, one will not obtain liberation.
뭐야, 다 됐어. 저저저. 야,
Time is up, so we're going to stop here for this session.
Tujiche Rinpoche, thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Buchung. Thank you for translating for us today. And please join us again next Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We'll finish with some dedications.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on a sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread the 10 directions. May the light of love songs, teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Iram Gururana Mandalakam Nriyatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezi, may you stay until samsara ends.
Recording stop.